last week because there was a meeting talking about, how the taxes and everything work. But that is a very good thing there, because that is a big employer in Clarkton. When Harriet and Henderson closed down and the little Sew It Seams plant there closed down, I remember Jenny and I were in the office and we looked at each other and said, 3 vacant buildings in Clarkton. There's no way we'll ever get Industries back in all of those. And end up with great businesses there. Black's Tire Service, teaming with Goodyear to build tires. But really the star in the crown over there has been Gildan. They've been there for a decade now. They've grown into one of the biggest textile companies in the world, and they continue to invest heavily in that plant. And we have great relationships with their corporate people. In fact, Chris and I were just talking about the hurricane and the devastation from it. And I think a lot of folks don't know that right after that hurricane hit, Gildan called us and wanted to know what they could do, and they just sent thousands and thousands of pair of socks and underwear and everything else that we could distribute around the region. So it's great to have companies that are investing in their plants, trying to be stronger in the community, but then also support the community as well. And Gildan is still looking at further investing there. So what's going on in Clarkton at Gildan is a very good thing. Also, and this is where I originally met Chris Lloyd, we recently announced an expansion at Smithfield Foods. That was a $45 million project that created 30 new jobs. They're just finishing that up right now. And that is a blast cooler and cold storage expansion that again positions our Smithfield plant to be even stronger now and in the future. So we know how important Smithfield is to our community. All the, I told Chris it didn't even trickle down effect when you talk about Smithfield in this region. It's a gush down effect, not a trickle. So we're glad that they continue to invest and expand in our community as well. And then one other thing that happened this year, last year when we had the meeting here was soon after Alex had opened. Bladen's Blooming originally built this facility, and we sold it to Alex, and he renovated it from a production facility to an event center. Well, y'all can't see this from here. Come up and look at it. Alex has got it later. Alex has one too. But just wanted to let you know that Bladen's Blooming Agro-Industrial, Cape Fear Vineyard and Winery, and Cape Fear Construction won a national award. This is a Barco Pruden Award, and this was the nationwide best agricultural renovation on a building. So this is a really, really big deal, and I think if you look around, you can see why. I was supposed to tell you earlier, but after the meeting, you're supposed to go out front to take some pictures with Alex so that they can get some publicity on this. Okay. Also, things going on that we're looking at this year. Bladen's Blooming also, we wrote a grant to RBEG, Rural Business Enterprise Grant. We bought the post office facility downtown. We had talked about wanting to have that thing open by about January or February. Unfortunately, due to the hurricane and finding asbestos and everything else, that project has drug on. But then I think really the kick in the shin was we opened the bids about, 4 or 5 Thursdays ago, and a project that was estimated to cost $215,000 about 16 months ago cost $396,000. So we are working to see, how we can still take that project on, and I think we'll make a decision here pretty quick about what we're doing there. But hopefully that's something that we'll still be able to bite off really soon and get open. Also, y'all, we're working on 3 or 4 really, really good projects. The investments of these projects range into, I mean, when you add them up, you're talking about the hundreds of millions of dollars. We're talking about several hundred jobs. So the outlook for this year is really good. We're competing for some projects that can really change the industrial environment here in the county. So, you know, we look forward to having everybody back next year and being able to announce some really good projects. But one thing I really want to not really congratulate everybody on, but to let you all know that's going on. We need product in the county badly. We only have one available industrial building. Most of the time to get these buildings up that bring clients here, I mean, every time we build something, it brings something. And most of the time it's turned out to be really good things. But, you know, the construction is expensive. Thankfully, we have a lot of great partners, from the Committee of 100, this group here that puts money in, to the municipality and the counties that work together and do it, to you know, the 4 counties and the Star Telephones that help do it. But construction is getting more and more and more expensive. But if we don't have the buildings, we do not generate the traffic. The Economic Development Commission Board, the county EDC board, we have the most involvement, the best group that we've ever had in my time here. They are spending a lot of time with us. The Bladen's Blooming Board is spending a lot of time trying to determine the best way to move from here. How do we get product up that's going to create the next success stories? So one thing that I want to do is, you know, let, you know, those 2 groups, you know, the EDC board and the Bladen's Blooming board and the county commissioners, let them know how much we do appreciate all the effort they're putting into this. And we're going to make a decision here soon. The county has set aside money for us to do product development. The most difficult thing now is, like I was explaining to Chris, is figuring out what to do. Because when you build a building, whether you build 16 or 20 or 40, you're going to have that until you sell it. So it's a very important decision, but I tell you, we've got some people that are really focused on it. They're being very diligent about gathering the information to make the best decision we can. And hopefully by this time next year, we will have product in place and people coming to look at it. And shoot, if you really want to be ambitious, maybe we'll already have it moved by then. But I really do want to thank those groups for the work and the thought that they're putting into it, because it's going to be a big decision that is going to be very impactful for the county. With that, I'm going to move on and introduce our, well, one more thing, right quick. I think a lot of you all may know Pim Jenkins. A lot of you may not. Pim started Turnbull Lumber here, golly, probably about 22 years ago. He grew it into a great business, grew right through the recession, employing, you know, got probably in the range of 40, 50, 60, maybe more people. Everybody that knows him knows he's just a smart guy, a great entrepreneur. And a lot of people have not heard yet, but Pim got in a surfing accident in Nicaragua about 3 or 4 weeks ago and is paralyzed from his neck down. So, you know, I wish that I'd remembered before Leon said the prayer at the beginning, because we do all want to keep, you know, Pim in our prayers. He is, he's adamant that he is going to keep running the plant, that he's going to put sidewalks in where he needs to, wheelchair ramps where he needs to. And you can, for those of you that know Pim, you can keep up with him on caringbridge.org. Look up Pim Jenkins. But, you know, certainly all of those that, you know, have prayer lists, you know, please add Pim to it. You know, not only is it a very important business in the county, but Pim and his family are great folks as well. So now let me introduce our guest speaker. Chris Lloyd is with McGuire Woods, and you know, we talk about site consultants and the folks that help businesses make decisions about where they're going to go. McGuire Woods is one of the most prominent consultants in the country. And you're not talking about not just economic development consulting. Chris is the head of the economic development and infrastructure division. But you're also talking about a major law firm that works with some of the biggest companies in the country. But you know, just a few of Chris's clients, I mean, it's an unbelievable list. He handles Smithfield Foods, he handles Purdue, Honda Jets, Ingersoll Rand, Hilton, Starbucks. I mean, if you saw the paper, it's an unbelievable list of clients. And then a lot of other clients they do legal work for. So when you're talking about what modern day economic development and site selection is, Chris knows exactly what's going on, and he's doing it every day. Chris has 2 children. I think you said an 11-year-old son and a 8-year-old daughter. So I hope I haven't scared him too bad about how thick the fog's going to be when that boy gets to 16. But he claims he's leaving when the daughter gets 13 anyway, so he'll be okay. But the other great thing about Chris is because we had an active project with him with the Smithfield project, he couldn't charge us anything. It would be a conflict of interest. So he's also free. That's a great thing because you know, his advice costs hundreds of dollars an hour. So even without cost, he found his way from Richmond, Virginia, all the way down here to Bladen County to talk to us about economic development. And Chris, we really appreciate it because your expertise in the field, you know, we really want to hear about it. So we appreciate you coming, and I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thanks so much, and it really is a pleasure to be with you all today to talk a little bit about economic development, and particularly be here in Bladen County. Even though Chuck said I'm from Richmond, Virginia, I really grew up in a place you've never heard of, Louisa County, Virginia, which is between Richmond and Charlottesville. When I was growing up there, my dad went to Louisa County High School, graduated in 1965. When you walked into high school, it had a sign there that said Work Progress Administration, Franklin Delano Roosevelt President. My school was built, it was a county of 19,000 people with one stoplight in the whole county when I was growing up in Louisa County. We were very excited when we got parties my senior year. That was a big deal in Louisa County. So rural America is at my heart, and actually, given the client base that I have with Purdue, Ingersoll Rand, Dairy Farmers of America, Smithfield, a lot of my projects are in rural America. And despite what you may read in the New York Times about the death of rural America, they just had actually an article earlier this week talking about, you know, should we just let rural America die and just focus on what's going on the left coast and the New York area, and that's where all the millennials are going, and that's where real America is. And I'll tell you, that's not where real America is. I was to San Francisco last week and couldn't wait to get on the plane. In fact, I rearranged my flights to get home earlier because I couldn't wait to get home and back to at least a small-sized city like Richmond. But you know, while Chuck and the team here talked about, you know, what they've been doing with economic development, I want to say first to y'all, thank you for what y'all are doing with economic development. Because while Chuck may be the face of economic development for this community, the way that economic development really succeeds now is because of people like you. Not only your financial support that you provide to move economic development together and forward, but really the commitment that you have to this community. And each and every one of you is an ambassador for this community in talking about how this community can be a great place for quality of life, for a great place to live, work, and play. And one example that always comes to mind when I think about that, and you don't realize how much of an ambassador you are sometimes until you hear some of these stories from your clients, is, as Chuck mentioned, I did all the work for Honda Jets, which now has 2,000 people in Greensboro building the Honda Jet. We thought that was going to be a 300-person project. They've now got 2,000 people really established North Carolina as a true aviation hub. And the head of real estate for Honda Jet, based out of Torrance, California, has got a man, Tony Piazza. He's about a 400-pound Italian ex-ATF agent, and now runs now he's retired though, but ran the real estate operation for Honda. And he and his wife Debbie, they have no children. but they have Chihuahuas, and that is a cross between a Chihuahua and a Dachshund, and those are their children. And Tony was, before I met him, the project he'd been working on was a new parts warehouse on the East Coast. And he was in Loudon, Tennessee, which is, of course, in rural eastern Tennessee. And they were looking at sites for this facility. And he had a few free minutes, so he went walking downtown. He walked into a gift shop, and he saw a gift shop that had earrings that had little dogs on it. And he thought, boy, Debbie would love those earrings. I can't imagine how ugly they were, but he thought Debbie would really like those earrings. So here's this big Italian, Brooklyn-esque guy walking into this little small gift shop in Loudon, Tennessee, and he pulls out a $20 bill to pay for the earrings, and the lady just opened for the morning. So she said, sir, just bear with me. I haven't gotten to go through our cash and get it set up for the morning. I need to go to the bank. She walks out of the store. He's the only person in it, leaves the cash register wide open. And at that moment, Tony Piazza from LA decided that Loudon, Tennessee was the place that Honda would want to be. Because if it was that kind of community where he could find people that were trustworthy of a total stranger, that's where Honda is a place that aligned with his values. And that's, I think, what you all find in this community, and that's what y'all have. And y'all have a lot to be proud of. And don't trust what the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal say about the death of rural America, because there's a lot of future here. What I wanted to do was, Chuck asked me to talk a little bit about kind of the changing nature of economic development and what's going on across the country and some of the trends with projects and how the world is changing in economic development. And Chuck introduced me as a site selector. And while that's technically what we call ourselves, I always say we're site eliminators. Because at the end of the day, there are 12,500 communities in this country. And I got to get it down to one for my client. And all those communities think they're the best place for that company. They think they've got the best site, the best workforce, the best resources, the best transportation network. And 12,499 of those communities will lose that battle for each project. And so having a community that's forward-thinking, that is welcoming, that has product, that has a local governing body which is bought into economic development is so important. And by the way, speaking of that, the other reason I do this for free, and it's not because only I have a conflict of interest, the real reason I do this, and I do this in Virginia all the time, I come to North Carolina a lot, is I refuse to let people come and pay me because I don't want them to think that I've been scripted by the local economic development to say what I'm saying. I'm saying what comes from my heart, what I found from 25 years of experience in economic development. So nothing here. Chuck saw my presentation, but he did not have any editorial control over it. These are my own thoughts. But people in economic development obsess, and whether it's in local government and economic development generally, they all obsess about we got to chase the big whale. We got to look for the big project. And folks, there aren't that many of those projects left in this country. By way of example, I decided to look through the annual reports of some of the neighboring states to North Carolina to see how many projects the state economic development apparatus was announcing each year. Last year, North Carolina had 139 projects statewide. South Carolina, 132. Virginia, 191. Georgia claimed 365. Ohio, 284. And Tennessee, 160 projects. That's not just in Memphis, that's not just in Charlotte, that's statewide. There are only a few hundred to a few thousand projects of any size or magnitude that are using someone like me that have a professional staff out there trying to find sites. And so when you think about, wow, I wish, Bladen County could be transformed if we had another Smithfield or some, big manufacturer, a semiconductor manufacturer, or a plastics manufacturer, an aviation company come in. Folks, there just aren't that many of those projects out there in the world right now. And so that's why it's so absolutely important to be thinking about, well, what can we do to grow our own, to expand our own, to invest in the entrepreneurs in this community, and to really be an asset and a partner to grow and specialize in those kind of things that we know that we're good at, and not just always be chasing the latest smokestack and the latest trend. I've seen so many rural communities get sucked into that this week's trend is biotech, so suddenly they're going to be a biotech hub. And next week's trend is going to be nanotechnology, so they're going to be a nanotechnology hub. And instead, sometimes you just got to sit back and look at, well, what are we good at, and what are we going to be excelling at, and you need to invest in that to move forward. But economic development is changing rapidly because I think a lot of people are recognizing some of these trends. Capital investment in projects is increasing rapidly. You're seeing a lot of automation of facilities, or just the equipment is getting much more expensive. I'm working a number of projects where companies are investing $100 million, and they may be even decreasing jobs. For example, as Chuck knows, I worked on a project in Columbus County, Riegelwood, for International Paper. For those of you familiar with that facility, of course, they've been making paper for decades. And of course, the paper market is dying right now. You know, everything's going electronic, or it's coming in from China. And so the only future for that plant was a conversion to fluff paper, which, you know, as we get older, we're using more diapers. And that's what goes into diapers is fluff paper. And they are actually spending $170 million in that facility and letting 50 people go. And guess what, folks? If they weren't investing that money in that plant would be gone. And you would have nothing. All 700 people would be gone. So you're seeing this trend in economic development where capital investment is increasing, but the amount of jobs that are being created is decreasing. But the jobs that are being created are at much higher wages than they used to be. And that is absolutely essential. You know, we think about there's this obsession in economic development with the number of jobs. And unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, we've got changes going on in the U.S. economy, where you've got this kind of hollowing out of the economy because there's a shift to lower wages or contract employment. And we need to see more investment in companies that are paying higher wages. And so that's what you need to be thinking about with regards to your economic development efforts. There is some clustering of projects in metro areas just because of their continuing population growth. But again, that does not mean the death of economic development in rural areas. But I will tell you, you know, everybody obsesses regarding economic development incentives in economic development. That is not the thing that most people are looking for. They're looking for an educated workforce. They're looking for quality of life. They're looking for a good location. And they're looking for a community that wants to be a partner. I was talking earlier to some folks, and this is one of my taglines, is that what companies are looking for is they're not looking for sales. Anybody can sell a community and talk about how the quality of life is wonderful, all the kids are smart, all the men are strong, and the women are beautiful, you know, the old lake will be gone. What they're looking for is they're looking for solutions. They're looking for solutions, not sales. Because at the end of the day, these companies are not charities. They are not creating jobs and spending money in your community because they want to. In fact, Wall Street punishes them when they create jobs and spend money. Think about it. When Ford or any of these companies decreases jobs, announces a big layoff, what happens to the stock price? It goes up. The street rewards you for laying off people and for cutting facilities, unless they think you're in a death spiral. So companies are not spending money because they want to. They're being forced to do so because of some customer demand, because of some obsolescence in technology, and something is forcing them to make this investment. So they're not looking for someone just to sell them on the assets of the community. They're looking for someone who can allow them to sleep well at night. And they're looking for someone to be their long-term partner. And so incentives, tax credits and all, yeah, those are nice, but what they're really looking for, like I said, a quality workforce, a quality place, of quality of life, a good location, somewhere they can reach their customers very easily and to make a profit and solve their problems. Now, you know, when you read about economic development, what's going on around the country, you got to realize North Carolina has some unique challenges when it comes to economic development. There's some great assets and attributes to North Carolina, and I always like doing projects in North Carolina. My in-laws are retired in North Carolina, so I want to see a prosperous North Carolina economy, because if it's not, they're going to end up in my attic. And so anything I can do to promote economic development in North Carolina and a strong economy, I want to do. But you know, North Carolina has some challenges from a legal perspective with regards to economic development that other states don't have. Other states often use property tax abatements to attract companies. North Carolina, Virginia, both states, unconstitutional. They rebate property taxes. They have voter initiative and referenda to allow for sales taxes to be passed to invest in economic development. That's the way Texas does it. You have local sales taxes that go to support economic development activities. You have tax increment financing, all of which are very hard to do in economic development in North Carolina. So instead, in North Carolina, you've got to be a little bit more creative. And that's why I think what Chuck was talking about with regards to project development, product management, investing in workforce, partnering with the school system, partnering with the community college system is so absolutely important. When you look at economic development partnerships, it really is absolutely vitally important to have a strong partnership in economic development. That's why this committee of 100 is so important, because economic development really is a team sport. You know, the community is only as good as the partners that you've got at the table that are investing in the community, that are trying to make that community great. But it's important to have someone who is organizing that effort and moving it forward, and also someone who's willing to learn from the lessons of the failures that when you have them. We're also seeing a change in the incentive landscape in the country of what's going on with incentives. You're seeing a shift away from tax credits. North Carolina has already started that. You're seeing a shift towards more incentives that are performance-based. So essentially, you don't want to have a company where you give them money up front as cash, and then they can sometimes walk away with it. I'll walk through an example of that in a minute. Instead, it's time, incentives, performance. That's the absolute smart way to do it. Remember, these are public funds at the end of the day. So you need to make sure the public funds are well invested and not do what Virginia did. A couple of years ago, we had an example in Virginia where a Chinese company came in and bought an old manufacturing plant. They paid cash for the plant, and then nothing happened for about a year. And everybody's going, well, what's going on with this company? And found out that the Chinese company that had got $3 million of cash from the state was fake. It didn't even exist. They had lied, they had cut and pasted websites, and lied on their application. They got $3 million from the state and haven't been seen since. That doesn't happen if you have performance-based incentives, where you reward someone after they've created jobs, made an investment in your community, and really become entrenched. And fortunately, I think you're seeing that in this county and this state is this move towards rewarding people based on performance and not paying people up front. And then having policies in writing is absolutely vital to making sure that you get to, you do not run into any of those problems. You know, there are several factors that I'm seeing that winning communities around the country are really embracing when it comes to economic development. First and foremost is alignment among all the stakeholders that have an impact in economic development. That's alignment with your school system, your alignment with your community college system, your alignment with your local government, your alignment with your local developers, and your alignment with the citizens. And unless you have all those 5 groups working together and singing off the same song sheet, it's going to be very, very hard for you to move forward in economic development. And that's why groups like this are so absolutely important, to get people together to understand what are some of the challenges, but also some of the opportunities that exist in economic development. Because if we, as site selectors or a company comes in and we don't see that alignment, we pick it up very, very quickly. Remember, everything is online right now. And when I'm looking at a community on behalf of a Starbucks or Smithfield Foods or whatever, and we're looking at investing in that community, you know what I start doing? I start reading the paper there every day. I start looking at the minutes of your Board of Commissioners. And I'm looking for, is this the kind of community that my client is going to want to spend money in? Or is this a community which is tearing itself apart and fighting itself? Or is this a community that, yeah, every community's got problems, and every community's got challenges and issues, but is this a community that has a vision and a path forward? And you can pick that up now very, very easily. You know, information is very fluid and moves very, very quickly. So that's not telling you to censor your newspaper and what they print, but it does show that you need to have that alignment among your stakeholders. And open and honest communications, having shared goals, having product that's ready to go is absolutely critical. But the other thing that a lot of people fail to do in economic development is getting inside the head of the prospect and understanding what is making them do this project. And that's why an ambassadorial program to your existing industries is so important. That's why sitting down with the company and not just trying to sell them, but really getting inside their head and figuring out, why are you doing this project? What's motivating you to do this project is so vitally important. Being honest about your shortcomings. I've been to many communities, I won't name them, that they just aren't open and honest. In fact, it was a project in an adjoining state that was the finalist for Starbucks. And there were many wonderful assets in that community regarding their community college system and their training facility. But they weren't open and honest about some of the challenges we had. And we all went out to dinner that night. We drove around the downtown community and we saw those problems firsthand. And when we asked about it the next day, they weren't open and honest about, you know, here's our, yeah, we've got some problems, but here's our vision for how we're going to clean this up. And here's how we're moving our community forward. And that community fell off the list. And we're eliminating that project went to Georgia instead of an adjoining state to here. Being open and accountable and having a transparent policy is absolutely vital. I know there's a great deal of hush-hush and confidentiality as it relates to economic development, but again, having that alignment among your stakeholders and public involvement is so vitally important. And with that, I was going to just close with again talking about a little bit about how economic development has changed. In that when I first started economic development about 25 years ago, we would usually have 2 years to develop a project. I'm now lucky if I get 60 days. Projects are moving very, very quickly. That's why having product ready to go is so important. That's why having land zoned and ready to go is so important. That's why having policies in place with regards to encouraging economic development is so important. That's why having the public buy-in, having alignment among your stakeholders is so very important, because companies make decisions and they take forever to make the decision whether they're going to spend money or create those jobs. But as soon as they make that decision, they are ready to go yesterday. And they don't have time for rezoning to happen. They don't have time for a building to be built. They don't have time for you to get the money to extend the utilities to the site. They want to go yesterday. And that's why having the policies and the practices in place is so important. They're thinking about long-term costs. They don't want just a big fat check at the beginning of the deal. They want to know what it's going to cost to be in a community. And is this a community that's fiscally conservative? They want to know that the tax rate we're paying now, or at least we're going to see consistency with that. Right? Is this a well-managed county that has a stable bond rating? They don't want to see that kind of wild fluctuations in politics in a county, or the cash position of the county, or fiscal responsibility. They want to know what our costs are going to be 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And again, like I said, prospects are looking for solutions, not savings. That's absolutely a vital aspect for economic development. With that, I think I've used up most of my time. Chuck asked me to just kind of give a quick view of what's going on with economic development, but also be open to any questions people had about other trends that are going on around the country. And with that, I'd be glad to take any questions. That's okay.
Anybody have a specific question? Okay, I did want Chris to, you and I spoke about it a little bit before, but you'll address it to them. Labor has always been like one of the top 3 needs, but now that employment rates across the country and even in North Carolina are ranging from 4 to 6 or 7%, what are you hearing from the businesses you work with about labor?
Labor is number 1. It's not top 3, it's number 1. And the ability to demonstrate that you've got either people that are ready to go or people that can be trained, and the training apparatus to train them is absolutely vital to a company. If you can't demonstrate, that is the first screen that I use for screening out a community, whether they're even going to make the short list for a client that I have. And we don't rely just on statistical data for that, although obviously there's a heavy emphasis on that. Something I was talking to Chuck about earlier is when I get down to negotiating or looking at a community, one thing I always insist upon is an employer interview. And that is, we insist on sitting down privately without Chuck or his colleagues or any of the state people in the room with our client to sit down and talk to the project managers, the plant managers. And the questions we're asking are, what's the labor pool like here? What's the school system like here? How many people send their kids to private school versus public school? What's your absenteeism rate like? Why do you have absenteeism? What's your turnover rate like? What's the drug problem here? And you really get a very interesting view of a community and the strength of its workforce through those kind of interviews. That's why, again, one, making sure your plant managers are happy is so important. But knowing, having the training apparatus and everything that's in place to make sure that you've got a trained workforce is going to be an attractive thing to bringing more investment, whether it's from outside the area or making sure that your existing companies can grow. The workforce is absolutely the key factor. And the one thing I'll add is, when you look at the job creation that's happening in this country, 8 out of 10 jobs that are going to be created over the next 20 years do not require a 4-year degree. They just don't. And so that's why those technical skills are really absolutely important.
Chris, on the infrastructure side, can you talk a little bit about what it means for utilities to be near or at a site as compared to in a site? What is that time frame being to be applied?
Sure. The question was about the importance of having infrastructure, particularly utilities, at a site. I will say there was a project that I was working here in North Carolina where the infrastructure, particularly gas, was 8 miles away, and that was what eliminated that. Everything else worked for that, except for the utilities being even proximate to the site. And they said, well, you know, we think within 12 to 18 months we can bring it down the railroad right away and we can get into the site. You know, that project site is gone. And that project went to another state. I think, you know, companies are comfortable if it's proximate to the site, meaning within a quarter of a mile, and that maybe the right-of-way is already defined and the path to get the right-of-way to the site boundary. Obviously, if it's already to the site boundary, it gives you a leg up. But if it's proximate, I think most people can deal with that. They understand that. But again, if you are not shovel-ready, or at least have the plan for how you're going to get utilities and other infrastructure to the site in relatively short order, it's going to take you off the list. Again, it's very easy for me when I've got, again, 12,500 other communities to pick from, and I'm looking at one site where no zoning exists or the infrastructure isn't even there, versus a community that has all the same assets, but the infrastructure is already there. It's very easy to take that one site off the list. And they're no longer considered, even though they may have some other assets which are very good. If that project's going to take 6, 12, 18 months longer to develop, that's money going out of the pocket of my client. And they're not going to look at it as much. Yes, sir.
What would be the 2 or 3 things that you would advise public schools and community colleges to focus on to aid in economic development, the things that businesses actually look at?
Sure. I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. Because it gives me a story to tell of how to illustrate my point, and that is to listen to the business community, to ask them what they want and what skills they see are needed. And the disconnect that you often see, and I'm not saying this exists in North Carolina, because I'll give a Virginia example. There was a study done by our legislative watchdog group a couple of years ago regarding career technical education in Virginia. And they did a poll of the career technical education system around the high schools in Virginia. And you know, what is healthcare now? 6th of the U.S. economy. And they found that 67 Virginia high schools had training programs in nursing and healthcare. 276 had career technical education programs in fashion design. The last time Virginia was fashionable was in the 1760s, folks. And what you essentially, you found that the career technical system in Virginia, and sometimes the community college system, was a popularity contest. And that there was just, that the courses that were being taught were what the students said they wanted. And there was no connection to the needs of business. And so, you know, effectively using some sort of employer panel is absolutely important. Making sure your workforce investment board is responsive to that, because often workforce investment boards sometimes are so captive to the, and I'm not saying this is the case here, but I've seen it elsewhere, workforce investment boards are captive to the service providers and not the needs of business. So being reflective of the needs of business is absolutely number one, and being able to shift resources as the community is shifting is absolutely vital. Number 2, it would be, I would say, to then have the ability to, where I've seen smart communities do things, is selling to students is a sure path to failure. The smart community, I would say Tennessee does a great job of this through their TCAP program. And this is more at the community, but it's, you know, it's the vocational training. You know, Tennessee, they've got multiple levels. They've got the high school system, they've got TCAP, which is the career and training academies, and they got the community college system and then the 4-year system. What TCAP and the community, the high schools have done is they've realized the way to sell vocations is not to the students, but it's to the parents and the teachers. And they have created an incredible program in Tennessee where they bring the parents, the guidance counselors, and the teachers into a modern manufacturing plant and show them this is not just about getting grease on your fingernails and sweating all day. These are high-tech, highly qualified, highly competent jobs. And making sure that those parents understand that if my kid wants to go into one of these professions, that it's honorable, that it's good money, and it's good wages. Because what kids are hearing is that you got to get a 4-year degree to be successful. And they're hearing that from their parents, they're hearing that from their teachers, and they're hearing that from their guidance counselors. And if you can intersect those parents, those guidance counselors, and those teachers, and help them understand that manufacturing, that the trades are honorable professions, that they pay good wages. Again, I've seen Tennessee, I think, is one of the best at doing that in some of the programs that they've pioneered there. I think between those two, that is having a system that is employer responsive to employers, and two, making sure you're catching up with the teachers, guidance counselors, and the parents. I think that's the best thing you can do with an education system and linking it to economic development and planning for the future. Thank you for that question.
Of the 12,499 sites that you don't select, what are the priorities that the client make for you to select that number one site?
It's usually a series of factors, a number of objective factors and subjective factors. On the objective side, some of the factors are ones that I talked about, workforce being number one. Do we feel like the workforce is there, or that the people are there that within the labor shed that could be trained in order to, you may not have people that are welders right now, but they've got good skills with their hands. We know that they can be trained. Two, looking at the long-term cost of what it's going to take to operate in a community. Three, I don't want to call it the ecosystem, but just kind of is this community a good fit for us? In fact, I just had a client call today, and it was between two localities in the U.S., two metro areas, and where they were going to go, and I was sure they were going to go to one community, and they said no, because the other community is known as such a center of excellence for this industry. Even though the objective factors, cost, labor, airport access, and all were better, we just feel that the system is better, that there's more people in our space, and we can grow more in this other community. So just that feel for the community from an objective side. And then many subjective factors. What does the housing stock look like? What does the schools look like? What are the recreational opportunities? And they will go, it's almost equal weight between the objective and the subjective factors. Is this the kind of place, eventually as you start getting through a site selection, or if you're dealing with a growing company, you're dealing with a person who's going to relocate her family to that community. And she is the decision maker, or her husband, whatever, is going to have to raise the kids there, whatever, and they want a community that feels good for them. And so all the objective factors in the world can't overcome if someplace, I was in, not to pick on Tennessee, but I was in a community last year on an economic development tour, and the communities, the mayor stood up and said, what do you like about our community? And I said, well, it seems like there's a lot of good things going on, but this morning I woke up early and I went running through your community. And I almost tripped and fell a number of times because your sidewalks are trash. They're all crumbled, cracked. And I said, there's just no curb appeal. It looks awful. And I said, that is something that, people do. They get up early and they walk around the community and they get a feel for, is there pride in this community? And there wasn't pride in this community. And so, all the objective factors in the world, if somebody has a bad experience because of that, you kind of need to be hitting it on all cylinders sometimes. You can't do everything perfectly. There's no expectation that you're going to be absolutely perfect. But putting your best foot forward, or again, if you don't have your best foot forward, saying, oh, well, we have a plan for that, or I had this happen. It was in the North Carolina community. Mac Williams in Alamance County, which is Burlington, Mebane, on the 85 corridor, had me come down to his economic development retreat at Moorhead, Wrightsville Beach a few years ago, and said, what was your view of our community? And I just last year we did a project for Lidl, the new German grocery chain that's coming in. They're putting 750,000 square feet of warehouse space, creating 200 jobs there. We put the manufacturing plant for the Honda Jet, the actual engine is there. And they said, clearly you like our community, but what would say is the negative part about it? And I said, when I get off 85, Burlington looks like garbage. And I said, I know that's hard to say, and again, they didn't pay me to come down there, so I could say what I wanted. And I said, it looks trashy. And they actually went out and created a beautification committee because of that comment, because they realized, oh my goodness, that's the front door to our community. When someone gets off Interstate 85, there's no sign that welcomes them to Burlington. There's no sign, there's no shrubbery. It's just urban blah, or suburban blah. And those things mean something to people. I mean, people are making, again, they're forced into decisions by their CFO, but at the end of the day, they got to live in that community, and they want to be in that community for a long time, so they want to see a community that takes pride in itself and has a sense of place. So it is both.
And I'm wondering about the
Absolutely.
Whatever required, find out where these people are. You have those duels that you don't even know about.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. 100% agree. Logistics. Thank you for the reminder. And in going through that site elimination process that I was talking about earlier, typically when we start out an economic development search, what I do is I will send out a request for information to a state or to a community where I'm trying to gather basic information, although I've probably got most of it. I can get it off your website anyway. And one of those criteria, logistics, is obviously very, very important. And one of those criteria for most projects I work is if you're further than 10 miles off an interstate, you're not even considered. Now that's because a lot of the projects we work on are manufacturing or they're distribution. And that is a very, I can show you one of my RFIs. You'll see that most all of them, if you're more than 10 minutes from an interstate or a limited access 4-lane highway, you're not going to get considered. And that's because, of course, the world has changed significantly. Is, just-in-time manufacturing, just-in-time delivery. There was actually a cartoon in the Washington Post the other day, or a few weeks ago about, you had blinds, the blind store, then you had next day blinds, then it was 1 hour blinds, and then blinds before you need them. Now people can't wait a week to get the product they want. They want to select it, and they want Amazon Prime to deliver it not in 2 days, not in 1 day, they want it in an hour. And so that's why you see some of this clustering of projects in metro areas because people have no patience. And that's why logistics is so very, very important. That doesn't mean that a community, I've located a lot of projects in communities that are further from an interstate where they don't have great airport access or don't have port access. But it is a challenge you've got to think about in this community, is that does limit the number of projects you're going to have because it does eliminate some projects which are very, particularly truck logistics, are very tied to being on an interstate. And communities, in fact, a number of our clients right now they have found, a lot of the companies now, particularly the large companies, have a very inefficient logistics network. Right? It's been just cobbled together as these companies have been thrown together over the past 10 to 20 years, and they find a great deal of inefficiency in their logistics chain. And they're realizing there's a lot of money being made in figuring out how to do better their logistics chain right now. And so if you can talk about how you can help a company optimize their logistics network, there are economic development opportunities there. Still understanding that this community does have some challenges because they're off the interstate. And so, again, Chuck did not pay me to make that comment, but I'd actually made that comment to him unsolicited when we first met and wanted to drive that home. So. Sorry to take up so much time.
Please tell me you don't have a peanut allergy.
I do not.
Okay, well, there you go.
Chris, thank you for being so candid. And we all live and love Bladen County, and sometimes we don't recognize the challenges that Chuck has and the folks involved in economic development have in Bladen County. But we do have our challenges, and that's why it's so important for this group and the municipalities and the county commissioners and the community college and high school for us all to pull together to try to support the economic development effort. That's what we're all about. We got a little housekeeping. We need a couple of business items that we need to take care of. All of you should have gotten a copy of the annual meeting minutes from our June the 8th of 2016 meeting. We held it right here. And if you'll remember, Mike Gowski, the CEO of Cape Fear Valley Health System, was here and addressed our group, and we had a great meeting. We need, I hope you've reviewed those, and we need a motion at this time to accept the minutes of that meeting held on June the 8th, 2016. If someone would like to make a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Duckworth has made a motion that those minutes be accepted and approved. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Troy has seconded the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. If you will look in your program, you will see election of board of directors. And Chuck, you've got to help me with this. We have 4 directors that show us having 1-year terms. Is that correct? Okay, they have all agreed to continue to serve. Now, will they go to a 3-year term if reelected?
If reelected, they would rotate.
Okay. Those are Paul Evans, Leon Martin, Rufus Lloyd, and Bill Jackson. Again, all have agreed to serve. Is there a motion that they be reelected? Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Campbell made the motion. Mr. Taylor made the second. Then we will re-elect them if all of you will vote in favor, or is there a motion we elect them by acclamation? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Now, that being done, if any of you here have a great interest and would like to ever serve on our board of directors, please make that be known. Let Chuck know, let myself or Leon know. We appreciate the service of all of those that do serve, and we're looking for people that are willing to serve. So please let us know, and you will certainly be given consideration. Mr. Martin is going to give our treasurer's report and membership report.
This will be very brief. Our treasurer's report, our beginning balance in the account was $12,715.75. Our ending balance was $12,715.75. So we didn't lose any money last year. We still got what we had to start with. Our membership report. Last year, our membership was 85. This year, our membership, thanks to the casino night primarily, our membership is 142. And that's the highest it's been in quite a while. So we thank you for that. If you haven't paid your membership dues yet, we take cash, check, and money orders. Jenny and Linda will probably be at the back table if you haven't already paid for this year. We would be glad to accept your membership fee tonight. Thank you.
We will have a very brief board of directors meeting. If all of those that are on the board of directors would gather at the front table immediately after we adjourn, we'll have a very brief meeting. Chuck, anything else? Again, I want to thank you all for coming out, for your support, and I want to thank Chuck for being innovative and having a casino night, which has led to a big jump in our membership. And thank you all for coming out, and have a great evening.